Welcome back to another silky smooth episode of EV Obsession. I'm your co-host Joe Borras, here as ever with my fellow co-host Zachary Shahan and his all-natural, super sustainable Christmas tree.
Yeah, just a normal Christmas tree from Home Depot. That's right. I mean,
We're here to battle deforestation one Christmas tree at a time. Oh no, reforestation. That's what we're battling. We're doing a great job.
yes, yes.
So this was actually a story that came out towards the end of last week, and it turned out to be a huge story over the weekend. We got a bunch of comments on it, a ton of emails about it. So originally we weren't going to talk about it on this show, but we decided that we're going to do it. So this is the Hyundai Uni Wheel. Now, what you're looking at here is a series of gears and effectively power transmission gears that are going to live inside the hubs of the next generation of Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis electric vehicles. This is effectively taking the drive unit, what Tesla has made everybody call the drive unit, the electric motor that drives the vehicle, and pushing it out to the corners. Now, there's a lot of really cool stuff that can be done that way. It frees up the design, the stylists of the vehicle. It makes the skateboard much simpler to produce and design around. However, comma, I know you like when I put the punctuation right there into the editing. However, comma, this to me, as someone who's done some chassis engineering and who's built some race cars, this seems like we're pushing an awful lot of weight out there into the corners as unsprung mass. This is going to be a real challenge, I think, to overcome in terms of suspension tuning and things like that. However, I think that what this ultimately says is Hyundai is starting to look at vehicles as appliances. They're not looking at things like driving dynamics. They're looking at things like driving down costs. They're not looking at things like handling. They're looking at things like, literally just how can we make these things cheaper, more efficient, easier to build so we can get them on the road for less money and start maximizing our income here. Um, but
Yeah,
that might be a cynical take.
that was a really good intro. I was like, man, I'm not gonna attempt to explain this thing because you can read Steve's article. He does a good job of attempting it. Joe just did a great job. But if you watch the video from Hyundai, I think that's the best you can get. But it's like over 6 minute video, and it takes a long time for them to explain in the simplest terms. I'm sure they could hope to use what's going on here, and the graphics are great. But again, it's a complicated deal. What's going on it's a massive change to normal architecture powertrain of a vehicle. It seemed to me like a big part of it was being able to customize what's inside of vehicles, being able to be more creative with how you design vehicles. I don't know if that's just the fun part of it that they decided to highlight for the video, or if it's really all about driving down costs, as you said. I'm curious your take on that. But also, I think, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think they're trying to just really jump into a revolution in vehicle design that enables more creativity, more options. But as far as motors being in the wheel, I mean, this is something that's been around much longer than I've been covering the space, but it's definitely something we've discussed since I started covering the space over a decade ago. And presentations are always these in wheel hub motors, and there's always a debate that goes back and forth about, oh, this is great, oh no, this is not good, because all these other risks and issues with putting and challenges, like you just talked about a little bit, putting the motors in the wheels. But this seemed like a little bit different to me than a normal like hub motor, kind of simple hub motor chain, idea,
Yeah, I
concept.
mean it's definitely more advanced. There's more there. It's not fair to say that this is
It's
a
not one guy in his garage figuring it out. It's like a bunch of Hyundai engineers working over a long time to try to get this right. Right?
I think they're going to try to get this right. And I think that's the key thing is there's been a lot of people who have talked about hub motors, Aptera, you've had Elio over the years. We've had Lordstown Motors is probably the most recent and the most infamous, right? But at the end of the day, nobody has yet been able to get it right. Now, Hyundai seems to think that the way that they have done this by effectively making it all into like where it all lives in that upright and in that knuckle so that it is still a drive motor. It is still separate from the wheel. They are doing some things to isolate it from the shock and vibration and things like that. And the salt, let's not forget the salt and road salt that's out there that has been part of the problem in the past. But they're always, every time a company promotes hub motors, they are always going to crow about the benefits of in-wheel hub motors. Nobody's going to announce a hub motor and say, hey, look at this cool thing we developed. We're going to put the most expensive, hard to replace, costly, critical piece of this vehicle way out there in the wheels where it's vulnerable to curb strikes, potholes, salt water, all of that. Nobody's going to say that, right? They're always going to emphasize this is going to make it so much easier for our stylists to design radically new, exciting bodies. But then at the end of the day, what they end up building is a big, huge van body with a completely flat floor so that Amazon can put 13.7 more cubic feet of containers in there. You're
Well,
not going to get something exciting. They're not going to give you some fun single-seater sports car.
but there
This
were
has
pretty
nothing.
pictures.
Yeah, there were pretty pictures. And if you believe that that's what's coming your way, then I got some other stuff to sell you.
You got a bridge to sell me?
That's it.
Yeah, well, I don't know. So I mean, you think it's about the point is partly to customize it for delivery vehicles, or you think it's
There's no
mostly about
customization. It's just to drive down costs. It's to put the stuff in the corners so that you can have a flat load floor. And when they talk about customization, let's be clear what they are talking about when they talk about customization is customizing a van body. They're talking about this is going to make it really easy to build an 18-foot van body for EU markets and a 24-foot van body for American markets without having to re-engineer and re-homologate this entire chassis. Yeah, all of this stuff that they're showing here, none of that is going to, that's what's going to happen. Brown boxes.
We'll get back to that. This is like the beginning part where before they
Yeah. This is showing you like how Tesla does it, and then they're showing you like we're going to do the same thing and we're going to move the drive motor all there you go all the way out. And what they're showing you there, yeah, exactly. It's going to take the loads and the take the load off of the CV joints. We're not going to have CV joints anymore. Look how amazing all of this instant torque is going to be. We have incredible transmission efficiency. Yeah, it's great. But again, they're talking about torque oscillations. They are presenting those use cases and those things that those engineering problems that a hub motor and an in-wheel motor are really, really good at solving. And you can see there that what they're doing is pushing a lot of this stuff out, but they're still using some sprung mass there, which is an interesting compromise between a traditional hub motor and a drive unit. I don't know. It all depends to be seen, man. I'm
that looks
a
like the real
cynic.
world.
Yeah, I'm a cynic when it comes to this stuff. I think that the Midwestern U.S. potholes and road salt are going to do do a number on these things, but we'll see.
Yeah, man, the potholes up in upstate New York where I spent one winter, holy moly, and they were bad. But yeah, I thought you were excited about this because you gave me the story last time and I just forgot to include it. So it wasn't like a
I mean, I'm excited to talk about it. I think it's really revolutionary. You haven't really seen yet, and when I say you, I mean we haven't really yet seen a fundamentally different approach to vehicle manufacturing in terms of EV to internal combustion. We could make the argument that Tesla is as close as we've yet seen, but they still have a drive unit mounted to a central chassis with constant velocity joints going out to the end. We have not seen anybody successfully build something fundamentally different, which this is. So we'll see.
Yeah. So just on the last point here, they asked about, is it scalable? And in terms of mass production, is this better or worse? Is this the same thing basically? It's just rearranging the parts? Is there any?
I think again, it's fundamentally different, right? It's going to give you the opportunity to effectively build a bajillion of these uni wheel powered wheels, powered hub things, and then just drop them where you need them. So instead of having like a 1.6 liter turbo motor in an Elantra GT and then a 2 liter 4 cylinder motor and a different Elantra and then a 1.5 liter turbo and instead of having all of these different motors, you're basically just going to build one. And you're going to build one drive unit, and then you're going to either put 4 of them or 2 of them or 6 of them or 3 of them into the vehicle that you're trying to manufacture. And it's not really going to matter what they are, what vehicle it is. There's going to be enough power there. And because of the way that they're doing the gears, this is actually real clever. So let's talk about this. Those different gear sets that are in there.
Should I go to any particular part of that video again?
No, we're fine. You can go to the top picture if you want. They're going to be able to put in a drop gear and effectively do increased torque multiplication so that they can manufacture this and they'll be able to use it. And they showed this. They'll be able to use this kind of system in automobiles as well as forklifts, as well as telehandlers and other kind of heavy equipment stuff, because this additional gearing and all this is going to enable them to do some torque multiplication stuff. I still think, you can see my little panda comment right there, this feels like a cost-cutting measure that is being sold as a handling revolution. Hyundai is smart. If somebody else was doing this, and let me back this up a little bit. If Toyota was doing this, I would tell you they were going to get this right. If Ford was doing this, I'd be skeptical. If GM was doing this, I'd be skeptical. If Stellantis was doing this, I'd say they're not going to get it right. Hyundai is smart. Hyundai is one of the companies that could potentially get this right. So I'm very excited to see where this is going to go. But this is one of those, and that might be a straw man argument, but this is one of those like consider the source kind of things. Hyundai is pretty dependable. They've got some solid engineers. There's a real high likelihood they're going to be the ones to get this right. And if they do, they're going to make a lot of people look really dumb, because this is going to be, I think this is going to be a really good way to get a ton of EVs into the marketplace profitably.
Yeah, so we move on. I think there's a lively low comment section there. Well, it's a week old, but
it's still going. There were fewer comments there. Yeah.
If you want to jump in, if anyone wants to jump in, I'm curious to see, I guess like you, but maybe less so, but the same deal. I mean, over a decade of covering this stuff, like you see concepts come and go, you see the same concepts repackaged come and go. And eventually, when I see something like that, my first thought is like, okay, let's see if it gets to production. Like let's see if it gets to mass production. Like, that sounds cool. That's interesting. I'm not an engineer, but even if I was, it's like everyone, there are multiple sides of every hyped up innovation, where some engineers are claiming one thing and the others are claiming the opposite. I don't think it makes you know everything to be in the field or out of it. It's sort of like, okay, is this eventually going to work and be mass produced, like in a really high volume? And that's what it comes down to. And yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'm just I have a lot of faith in Hyundai. So I think they do really good stuff, and they've been some of the best innovators, as we've talked about. But like all automakers, they can be keen to just hype up futuristic stuff and make themselves seem like the leaders of the future. because that's good marketing. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. You sent a chat here. Should I read that?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people don't realize how much Hyundai operates within the commercial truck, van, forklift, light equipment, wheel loaders, things like that. How much Hyundai operates in that space away from the United States. This is an innovation for this market, for this kind of thing to fit more boxes into a platform. I'm not making that up. They showed it enough times in their video. That's what this is. So
yeah,
don't get too excited about driving one of these anytime soon, unless you work for Amazon or Walmart.
Yep, they did. Good stuff. So we had, well, Jesper Berggren, who's Danish, wrote about the Denmark Car of the Year in a separate article. Sorry, but when I looked at the list, I mean, okay, so the BMW i5 won the award, which I found sort of funny because it looks like an older BMW. It doesn't have like more of this new age EV look to it. It's a bit of a throwback. I mean, not like a deep throwback, but sort of a bit of a throwback. But the thing that struck me really was when I looked at the list of finalists, I was like, holy cow, these are some great EVs that we don't have in the US and we might never get. And so I wrote this article, Denmark Car of the Year awards highlight the fact that the US can't have nice things. So, I mean, they've got the Volkswagen ID.7 is one of the finalists, which we will get next year. And I'm stoked about. I'm really excited about that vehicle. But they also got the Xpeng G9. And I mean, look at this. Like, we don't have anything like this on the US market.
No, that's real nice.
This is the closest to this is like Lucid or Rivian maybe, but they're like different vehicle types, far more expensive. This is just something we don't have and we might never get. But look at this. This is ridiculous, right? I'm surprised it didn't win. And then you've got also the BYD Dolphin, which is not as fancy, but still is designed by a Chinese company that knows how to do tech. And it's super cheap. Like, it's not like super cheap, but it's like it's a very affordable yet very nice high tech car. So we have affordable electric cars in the US, but not like with this quality. And so I don't know. I was just like, wow, Denmark, they got the BYD Dolphin, they got the Xpeng G9. We're over here in the US with the scraps.
That's right. And I think honestly, part of the reason that those companies are not going to win this is because this is a European kind of award in a country that is not typically known for being like super excited about Asian products. So I think the fact that they included them is like an admission, like, okay, look, this is so good that we have to include it, but our heart's not in this. We want to sell you tulips, windmills, and wooden shoes. And that's not what this BYD thing is about.
Yeah, well, that's that. Congrats to BMW for winning a surprise car award in Scandinavia, but that's not that's not the most amazing part. There, it is also notable that this is the 5th year in a row that an electric car won Denmark's Car of the Year award.
Hi, my name is Scott Cooney. I started CleanTechnica to promote clean energy and other sustainable alternatives, and for 13 years we've been moving markets. If we had a nickel for every time someone told us they bought their first EV, solar, e-bike, or fill in the blank clean energy solution, we'd be a cable TV channel by now. But we don't get those nickels. So unfortunately, we could use your help to reach a few more people. If just 1% of our audience chipped in a few bucks a month, we could hire dozens of great journalists and promote all sorts of climate solutions. It's easy. Just go to cleantechnica.com/support and sign up with a credit card in seconds. Cancel anytime. But we'll be sending out some cool perks too, so I think you'll want to stick around. With your support, we'll keep leading the charge. Thank you so much.
So
yeah,
they've been
that's
cleaned
cool.
up. Now, over here in the US, we got,
go get them.
oh man, I saw this like featured in Google News, and it's one of those cases where like, oh man, I should not even click that. I should not even give them the clickbait, that one more click. But I had to see what they wrote. So
So instead, you gave them 3,500 clicks.
Yeah, 8 electric cars to avoid buying, and the list is ridiculous. I mean, this is the list. And there are a couple on here, like the Mazda MX-30. We've talked about this. This is a totally, this doesn't have nearly enough range. It doesn't, you can't recommend this to anyone. The Ford Focus electric, like very few of these were built. It stopped getting built like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, how many are actually on the used car market even? Like, why is
same
this
thing
included?
with the Chevy Bolt? Like, that's
it's
a
so
discontinued
stupid
item.
that this is included. But then there are vehicles on here which I think are awesome, popular vehicles. You may disagree with some of them, but the Tesla Model X, the Ford Mustang Mach-E, the Porsche Taycan, then the more affordable Hyundai Kona Electric, Chevy Bolt EV, Nissan Leaf. I can't recommend the Leaf much. Obviously, we can't, because CHAdeMO charging, not the best batteries, etc. But it's still, it's a nice vehicle if you just want to drive around town, not far. I still really love the vehicle. I think it's a nice, affordable vehicle. So I would pick it over the Bolt personally, even though it doesn't compare to the Bolt in specs and price.
Yeah, I have nothing really to add there. I certainly would not recommend the MX-30 to anybody, but I liked it. I mean, we liked it enough that for a second vehicle, we did look at that, and we did kind of try to buy one, and we were told we couldn't.
Yeah, they're like only sold in California.
And yeah, like so, right. So the Mazda dealer, this was City Mazda down here, McGrath City Mazda, Matt McGrath, a decent dude. We've known each other and hung out a few times. He basically said he couldn't get one, and if I wanted one, he could buy one from a dealer in California and do the delivery. But it was just like such a nightmare that it didn't really make sense. There was issues with like the states being reciprocal, so like the taxes would have to be collected a weird way. It was just a dumb thing. And then when I said, okay, you know what, that's what the wife wants, and she gets what she wants, so might as well do it. Then by that time that had rolled around, my buddies in California didn't have one either. So it was just a whole mess. The Chevy Bolt, again, that's a discontinued item. Mustang Mach-E. Why would you not buy a Mach-E? Like, what was their reasoning on that?
Well,
that's so crazy.
Well, that's what I was going to touch on too. So the reasoning on several of these was like reliability issues with early on, but it's like every new model has issues early on. Like every model,
new model,
doesn't matter
everything.
what it is.
Yeah,
it's going to have teething issues, and that's going to show up in Consumer Reports reviews and whatever, and surveys. And like that was basically the rationale for several of them. And you're like, well, what the heck, man? And it's like, so we had Mustang Mach-E owners and Bolt owners responding like, yeah, this was like an issue that they resolved under warranty and early on, and now I haven't had an issue for 50,000 miles. And so it's just like they just cherry picked these kind of early teething problems and said you shouldn't buy this popular EV that people love because it had a few problems when it came off the production line the first year. And it's like, that's what really, one of the things that really irritated me. It was like pushing people away from good EVs that people love for stupid reasons.
Yeah, and this really seems like a post that was written by the ExxonMobil PR team. Like, we've got to include something bad from every major car maker so that people assume, well, if the Mazda MX-30 is bad, all of the Mazda hybrids are bad. If the Chevy Bolt is bad, that means all the Silverado and everything must be bad. Like, it really seems like they went out of their way to pick something from everyone. And then the inclusion of the Ford Focus Electric is just bizarre. I mean, you have to be the most clueless, idiotic, know-nothing, maliciously ignorant automotive writer to even suggest that the Ford Focus Electric was still involved in any way in the EV market. I can't say enough negative things about absolute clown show of a human being who assembled this list. If it
That
was
was,
an AI, they would have pulled the plug.
I mean, it was probably the Focus Electric that just finally like pushed me over the edge, because I was like, what the heck are you doing? Like, I think it was just some probably basic, simple listicle copywriter who was told, hey, EVs are a hot thing to write about. Like, hey, let's do a story on EVs you shouldn't buy. That'll be a popular story. And it got put on gobankingrates.com. And then Yahoo Finance is doing this thing where they repost. They have a handful of like, I don't know how many affiliates where they repost content from, and you barely notice it's from someone else. Like, it's quite hidden. It's just like, it looks like a Yahoo article, and it's got like hundreds or thousands of comments. It's like, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is getting so much attention, and it's just a stupid listicle that some intern wrote for this weird website never heard of. And it's like, but really, this is oh my gosh.
This feels like Chat GPT wrote it.
Yeah, maybe. The one thing I thought was worth highlighting for people is, yeah, with any model, there are going to be issues early on with production reliability, and you shouldn't be scared away from buying an EV that you like, that people seem to be buying in decent numbers, that they seem to like, just because there were reliability issues. And that goes for Teslas, it goes for Fords, it goes for the Bolt, it goes for every vehicle, like that, every new model. So I don't know. That's it. Anything else? Okay, we got the Cybertruck. I almost sent you this video yesterday to watch, but I don't know if you've seen it. But I mean, he's got his video review. I'm just gonna open it real quick. I'm just gonna open both these real quick, and I'll just highlight something here. His like 40-minute video on it, he's got a lot of subscribers, and he's got 15 million views on this video. The Tesla presentation has 146,000 views. So this is
too many.
This is like this is, I mean, of course it was streamed live on Twitter. I don't know how many people watched it live, but like, this is an order of magnitude larger. Like, he's got impact.
And this video especially has a ton of impact.
Oh, of course. And he's very neutral. There's times he makes some comments in the video where you're like, he's sort of distant. You know, you can see I think he has a Tesla Model S Plaid right now. That's his daily driver. So, and he's always been a good Tesla promoter. He's interviewed Elon in Tesla's factory, and he's someone who doesn't. I don't think he offends people. He never offends anyone. He's very friendly and diplomatic. I think he's got some issues that he's sort of just subtle about, but overall, he's just not the guy who's going to go making a fuss over anything, making controversy. But he did highlight like things he thought were cool about the Cybertruck and things he was concerned about with the Cybertruck. And I was watching, and I was like, I should just make a list of this so I can remember and refer to these things. And there's a lot of little things, but I don't know if what we want to run through, but
I think real quick, let's just talk about each one of these things real quick. Okay. You can remove the side mirrors. Okay. I don't think a lot of people are going to do that. It's a very Jeep Wrangler-y, Jeep Bronco, Ford Bronco type of feature. Great. Dampen tailgate.
But I was just saying, that comes from, like, there's been a push for decades, years, like by automakers. Before Tesla, was it Ford or GM who was like trying to get them removed so that they would have much better efficiency. Ford. And so that you would have better fuel economy, this pre-EV era, so that you could, hit your fuel economy targets in an easy way. And then you just use cameras in place of that. And for whatever reason, the US government still like not allowing this as an option. So Tesla's like kind of workaround is like, okay, we have side mirrors, but you can easily just take them off. I mean, the issue, I think, if you drive around Florida without a side mirror, you're going to get pulled over by the cops and be like, hey, you don't have side mirrors, you get a ticket. I don't know if this is the case everywhere. I don't know if this is still the case, but
Florida, you just need it on the driver's side.
Just on the driver's something which only Joe would know. No. So, well, anyway, but the idea is like, okay, wow, we're going to get around this by making them easily removable. Then you can improve your efficiency. But at the end of the day, like, yeah, like you said, not many people
I
are
think
pointing to.
the thing that I want to point out here is when he's talking about cool things about the Cybertruck, none of it feels particularly unique.
Well, you can go
In
through
other
them all
words,
now. I just wanted to give some the
sure.
mirrors. I put it first because of this background on it, and it's sort of being the rest are mostly little things that I don't have any
Yeah,
extra.
a dampened tailgate. You know, there's a lot of vehicles that have that power tonneau cover as an aftermarket item that's been around for years. A little sub trunk with drain plug. Ram has that in the on the side of their pickup beds. I've
I
seen
think the
that.
Ford Mega Frunk has it too, right?
Yeah, I've seen a couple of those. Ford is a great example. People use them as coolers from the Ford Lightning. They use it as a tailgating thing. Electricity outlets in the back. I've got 110 outlets in the back of my 2017 Volvo. I'm not particularly impressed by that. I think there's a ton of those. The Pontiac Vibe and Toyota Matrix had that way back in 2004 and 5. And they would show people plugging in their laptops and things. So again, this is stuff that's cool, but nothing really
Oh wait,
exciting.
you didn't catch the memo? This is a second generation Pontiac Vibe.
I did catch that memo. I don't think anybody else did. Looks like an Aztec to me, though.
That's
Powered frunk. Okay. So we have a powered hood. That's, again, very strange. A tray slot. Like, of all the things that you're looking for, and again, I'm not taking away from this guy, but it seems like we're trying really hard to find positive things about it. And
well,
the
I think in his video, he was just like, I'm just going to walk through everything I see here.
Yeah.
The good and the bad. And then I was like, well, these are the things that I find notable, like sort of, I just pulled everything out basically.
I get it.
They said the power to steer by wire are sort of the biggest benefits, but like the steer by wire, they have a video of him doing. They do that with they do a circle with the Cybertruck and the Ford F-150 Lightning, and they exclaim, how much tighter the Tesla Cybertruck turning is. But at the end of the day, like it wasn't really a big. I mean, it didn't really. I mean, how much is it going to matter? I don't know.
Zero.
I think it's an improvement, but I have a hard time seeing I have a hard time getting really excited about it. I think the biggest thing is the power, and the power of the Cybertruck is ridiculous. And like in the racing video, like it was, beating a Porsche 911 carrying a 911. I mean, I think that's notable. It beat all the other trucks in the truck pool. I think this is notable stuff, but how far it goes in selling more trucks, I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, those are I was expecting more.
There was a lot of stuff there in those tests that was very impressive if you don't know what you're looking at. If you keep shifting up and losing that torque multiplication on the diesels, you're not going to get that speed. If you leave it in low, you'll go further. That's a different conversation, right? So again, what I was trying to say before was it seems like there's a lot of positives there that are largely spectacle and that are largely, let's call them, subjective, but the drawbacks seem very objective, concrete, and concerning.
Yeah, so the first one, put these two together, he highlights that they're quite sharp edges on the corners of these panels. And I mean, one thing that comes to mind is like your shirt or bag getting hooked on these and torn on these. But the more serious concern is these things slicing people up, and especially in accidents, the combo of the sharp edges and the stainless steel, which doesn't provide good crumple zone, doesn't provide good buffer, good cushioning, is a serious concern for me in accidents. And I saw comments under his article referencing that initial testing seemed to show that this was really not good for the vehicles and people in the vehicles being hit, but also for the Cybertruck passengers, that they were getting jarred much more than in a normal 21st century vehicle because they didn't have that cushioning. So their bodies were getting jarred much more, like in the olden days before. Like okay, I have one little side rant, and then I'll leave it to you to have much more history. But I mean,
Give me the side rant, baby.
I mean, I remember I feel like my dad or people I knew sort of talking about like, oh, cars aren't built like they used to be. They used to be tough. You hit them, you could keep that body for after many dents and dings, and without having to change it. And in the 90s, I think this is when it happened more, where things became more plastics, more like they just get crushed in an accident. You have to replace the whole door, the whole bumper because of this fender bender because it just got smashed in. And I feel like I remember complaints like, oh, things aren't built like they're used to be. And it was much later that I discovered, oh, this is for safety reasons. This is actually a benefit. This helps people be safer because that crumple zone takes all the impact and it doesn't send it to you, the human. So it's something we've moved away from these kind of strong, sturdy panels to this other thing. And now it's like with the Cybertruck, it's like, look how strong and sturdy the panels are. And I don't know. I don't see it as, I think it's a big concern that's just really not being highlighted much yet, but maybe will be when crash testing is out and trucks are on the road more. But
I have three things to say. Number one, there was a ton of that. If you are a Gen X or an elder millennial, your baby boomer parents absolutely cry and complain about how nothing is built the way it used to be. They would sob into hysterics talking about how the 55 Chevy Bel Air or 59 Plymouth Fury or whatever it was that they were driven to school in the snow 10 miles both ways uphill, that thing was built like a tank. And if you could hit that thing and bounce it off a tree and all this. Now, number one, it turned out that was very, very bad for the people inside the vehicle because that energy is being transmitted from the crash into the bodies of the meat people in the little meat puppets inside the car. So that transition to crumple zones, which was pioneered by Volvo and Saab, who were the first companies to start using full-size crash test dummies and telemetry and things like that, that safety testing transitioned and went out into the entire industry. And those patents were made freely available to other automakers who started to realize that safety was an important concern and was a good marketing tool and started to build that stuff into their vehicles. The second point that I want to bring up is that it's just not true. The fact that these vehicles were not designed to crumple and had big, heavy steel bumpers did not mean that they did not crumple in accidents. In fact, very low speed accidents would create very dramatic, very dangerous type of accidents. And I dropped in the chat, there's a YouTube video showing a 2009 Chevy Malibu crashing into a 1959 Bel Air. And the Malibu, which is mostly plastic and made of quote unquote cheap steel, according to your, boomer relatives, that thing absolutely gets destroyed by the Malibu. And it is just crazy. I mean, if Zach shows the video, I know we're watching this Cybertruck ad here, but if Zach shares the video, you'll be blown away. If not, it's an IIHS safety video. You can find it. It's absolutely insane.
I'm gonna get open. Hold on.
You're real bad at this.
Oh, I want to have the other one ready, but
yeah. So real quick,
here's the video.
Boom. That's a 50-kilometer impact. So it's basically 35 miles an hour. Everybody in the Bel Air is dead. That this quote unquote built like a tank is a complete and utter myth because people don't understand strength to weight and they don't understand that plastic is stronger than steel. That's a completely different conversation. You can take it up with the material science engineers, or better yet, go to the same people who taught me. They're stationed at Patrick Air Force Base. They'll tell you all about it. So the first thing is, yes, these vehicles were not safe. The second thing is it was a total myth that they did not compress in an accident. The Tesla Cybertruck, this is my third point, any Cybertruck that you actually watch the crash test video for if it looks good after the accident, which it won't, the people inside are going to look like goo, and it's going to be no bueno. However, because we live in the United States, the safety standards for heavy duty trucks, which is what the Cybertruck is, it's classified by the EPA and the feds as a heavy duty truck because of its mass, which is over 6,000 pounds. It is subject to different safety standards than passenger cars and passenger automobiles. In fact, not only is it subject to different safety standards, it is subject to fewer safety standards, which is one of the reasons that so many American automakers are going against the grain. They are stopping and halting the manufacture of passenger cars and focusing on SUVs and crossovers that they can classify as light trucks and not have to meet the same standards. So absolutely, this is a genuine, real concern that he's bringing up here. And it's not to say that the car won't be safe. It's just to say that it's going to be safe in a different way. And yeah, it's going to be a totally different animal.
Yeah. So it's something that Tesla always highlighted first with new vehicles, safety, that they aced the safety test, that they scored better if you look into the details than any other vehicles before in the NHTSA safety test. I don't think the Cybertruck is going to be able to make those claims because of what it's doing, what's going on here for the passengers, and also what it's doing with regards to the other people and the other pedestrians, the risk for pedestrians and bikers and in accidents like this. So I don't know. It's probably the number one. It is the number one for sure concern for me about the truck. And yeah, I mean, there was, like Elon joked about, whatever you get in an accident with, it's going to be completely crushed, and he laughed about it. I was like, well, I'm not really eager to see someone dead in the other car because the Cybertruck is built like a tank. But yeah, that's the first two things we highlighted here. There's no door handles, which I'm gonna again open his video just to highlight again how it works in case you haven't seen. I mean, everybody's seen it. Look, there's 15 million views on it, but but just to look at it again,
everyone has seen it.
You can see like there's this little spot that you're supposed to, tap, and then it opens the door, and then you pull the door. You can see here's that little white rectangle, or near in front of it. I mean, I get the design is sleek and minimalist with this. I get the appeal, but I am concerned about that, as like he highlights in the case, like Tesla told him, and he's skeptical that it won't get blocked and unopenable in the icy weather. He comes across as very skeptical of that, and noting this is a California company, blah blah. But aside from that, I think his point, like once you click that and the door pops open, people are going to just grab the door wherever, not just in that top spot it's meant to be grabbed. And you're going to have fingerprints all over the doors. Some people have highlighted it's not that hard to clean the fingerprints off of the stainless steel, but I spend approximately 0 time cleaning fingerprints off my car because I don't need to, my Tesla Model 3. And I wouldn't want my car looking gross with fingerprints everywhere, but I also wouldn't want to spend like every day cleaning fingerprints off the car, so off the truck. So I'm not really, I think he's highlighted a good point here, which is like, these trucks are going to look ugly, and if you're fine with that, fine, but they're supposed to look cool, and the fingerprints don't look cool. I mean, I don't know. It's more in the minor category, like the top list, like the aesthetics category. But yeah.
I have to say, there is a joy that I get from how stupid this thing is. I love that somebody sat down and said, this is the dumbest thing we could possibly build. Let's build it. I think there's a non-zero chance that I still take my reservation when it's available.
Yeah, no.
but don't
Well,
misunderstand me.
Well,
this truck is complete hot garbage, but so is my Fiat 500 Abarth. So is my old Lancia Beta. You know, I didn't buy the Hyundai Ioniq 5 because I thought it was cool. I bought it because it looked like my old Lancia Delta that my family had in Costa Rica. Like, I am into this crappy car thing. I had a Pontiac Fiero, just like Jennifer Sensiba. What a horrible little death trap that was. I love horrible cars, and this is the worst one I think I've ever seen, and I love it.
well,
I can't help myself from loving it, but it's a terrible vehicle.
Well, I mean, I think that's a good synopsis. I mean, I'm very drawn to it despite not liking trucks. Like, I have a non-zero. There's a non-zero chance. I was thinking about it today. I was like, I really might end up one day.
I might end up with my stupid.
Like, there's an appeal to it. There's like, wow, that's cool. Because it's out of like the movies, and that's what Elon has done time and time again. He references, he alludes to movies, and it just looks like it's straight out of a movie. It looks cool. It's fun. Some of the stuff is idiotic, like the door thing, but it's somehow like that's part of what the truck is. The sharp angles, like, but it just looks cool. It looks like it's out of a video game. And I have an article I'm going to write today. There are Tesla Cybertruck. There are two ways this could go, and I'm going to go into depth about like why it might work and become a big seller, and why it might be a complete dud. And it's like I think people just have to like honestly admit, okay, some people, they think absolutely this will be the best-selling vehicle in the world one day. Other people, absolutely, they think there's no way this vehicle sells well. I think for most of us, we have to admit we don't know what's going to happen with this vehicle. Like, we don't know if it's going to become a cult, like a hugely popular cult classic, future classic. We don't know if it's going to really sell poorly, and like all the hype around it is like until it comes to the point of buying it. Like, there's different factors here. We don't know if Tesla will drive down costs and be able to sell it for cheaper when they've ramped up production. So there's various ways it could go, but there's no denying it's a different vehicle in many ways. And I think there's nothing that captures that as well as the windshield wiper. Like, watching this part was the weirdest for me, because the windshield wiper is it's huge. It's so weird and huge. This single wiper.
Well, it's funny, right? Because it's very similar to the Mercedes-Benz 124, the W124 chassis. Had that same kind of gigantic single wiper. They put it. I dropped that in the chat as well, and that was in the middle. And they had an articulated arm, so it would start to sweep, tuck under, and then go back down. So it would actually cover most of the entire windshield. And Mercedes put that out there as a technological innovation, where they actually said, we are sweeping a greater proportion of the windshield with a single wiper than we previously had been with two wipers. That's not what this is.
Yeah, I'll open that in a second, but
this is just big.
Well, it's the largest
like a 40-inch wiper.
It's the largest piece of glass in the auto industry, passenger vehicle industry. And the wiper, it's just so cartoonish. Like, I could watch this part of the video like on repeat for an hour, because it's so cartoonish and funny. And I mean, sort of like appealing, but also like, that's so bad. It's like exactly what you talked about. Like, this is horrible, but it's also so appealing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the real issue here, this is concerning, because you see that glass. If that is truly flat glass, then these things are going to go through windshields like freaking hotcakes, like it's their job. Because a lot of the strength of glass, especially automotive glass, comes from the fact that it is curved. that flatness, that extreme flatness, does a very poor job of transferring energy and deflecting energy. So I think that Tesla is smart enough to have a fix for that. And it's probably not as bad as I think it might be. But again,
Yeah.
I worry about Tesla owners and shattered windshields.
This is a funny, I don't remember seeing this before.
Oh yeah, this is great. But you can see how it articulates and it does the thing. That is still to this day, the 124 Mercedes E-chassis is the vehicle that had the most swept area of its windshield. This is actually something I know way too much about, because when I was working at Mosler, actually back then it was Concealer in the 90s, and this is when we were building the early US electric car stuff. We were talking about changing the shape of the windshield glass, and it was actually a big deal because there's a certain percentage of the glass that must be swept in order to get DOT approval. And we had an extremely curved windshield, and it was very hard to make that happen. So the solution we had was little mini wipers up in the corners to get that last, 3 or 4% that we needed in order to get it DOT approved. But that was another lifetime. I don't even know if those laws still apply. That was like 96, 97, back in the Don Salerno redesign days. So that was a fun little contest, if you remember that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm somewhat concerned. I can't tell from the, like, when you look at this image, like how much.
Well, you can see the black
how much will
paint.
this harm visibility? I maybe not at all, but there's obviously a lot that's blocked here. But there's also the biggest piece of glass. Well, Elon said on stage, like, this is not breakable. It's armored glass, and it's supposed to be like not breakable. I don't buy it. Like, I think what you're explaining with the flatness of the glass is very interesting, fascinating thing I had not seen at all. So it's a very interesting point. But I mean, driving on the interstate, something flies into your windshield. Maybe pebbles aren't going to crack the glass, but something will. So I don't know. I'm waiting and seeing like what happens. But obviously, if your windshield does get cracked, it's going to cost a lot to replace it. That's for sure. So there are a few neutral notes. The truck is 5% smaller than originally shown. It's slightly shorter than the F-150, but it has a longer bed. He said the trunk bed is basically even if you count like that the Cybertruck has a little, like, raises a little bit at one point, but it's actually longer if you count that portion. It's got a smaller frunk, so that's the trade-off. You get a smaller frunk but slightly longer bed. But yeah, that's it. Then there's the that's any comments on the size of the truck? Or I mean, I think it's probably helpful that it ends up being around the same size as a F-150 Lightning, because there might be a lot of people like, oh, this doesn't fit or whatever, if it had been larger. But and then there's the fact that this stuff is up here.
The dumbest vehicle.
Just like constantly, this is the dumbest vehicle, and I really might get it.
Oh yeah, no, this is okay. This is the question I have to ask myself. A lot of the Italian BS cars that I have owned in my life, and my 73 VW Beetle that I also love, that was another terrible vehicle. They were terrible in ways that gave them a unique character and that paid off in fun in other ways. The question I need to address, and this is a very personal question that we have to all ask ourselves, is, and the question itself is shaped like this: is this too stupid even for me? I'm not sold that it's not yet, but I'm not sold that it is either. Like, like, it doesn't have door handles. You can remove the mirrors. It's got these stupid looking wheel covers. The whole thing is stupid
I love the
looking.
wheel covers. I know some people don't. Well, you don't, and I know some other people don't.
No. I do love them, but not because they're cool. I love them because, like, you are going to be this much of a dork in life, and you're going to have these geeky, pathetic, stupid, lame wheel covers. Roll with it. This is great. This is like the Dungeons and Dragons chess club on wheels. This is fantastic.
Well, it's funny because when I look at it, I'm like, man, I do really love that truck and want it. when I think about driving around with it, I'm like, no way in hell I want to drive around with this. Like, I don't want people pointing to me and being like, oh, look at this guy driving the Cybertruck. And like, like, you know, having a million conversations about the hubcaps, the truck, everything, and being like that guy,
Yeah.
the one in the pickup line with the Cybertruck. Like, I don't want to be that guy. Like, sorry, I like the truck. I'm actually really drawn to the truck. I think it's that video game or movie, like, just look to it that pulls me in. I think that's what it comes down to. Like, when it comes to driving it, I'd rather drive the Model 3. I'd rather drive the Ioniq 5 probably. But I just like how it looks. But I don't know. It's going to be controversial. Let's move on. There's
we can get through these real quick.
We're done. Yeah, we're done. We'll just talk. There's ABB E-Mobility and Scania have a big global partnership where Scania, which sells trucks, increasingly electric trucks, will be selling ABB chargers as part of the package. That includes anywhere from 24 kilowatt to, I think, where is it? Anywhere from 24 kilowatt to 600 kilowatt chargers it will be selling its customers. They're also working together on a megawatt scale charger, so that'll probably be added before long to the portfolio. But it's just cool that, you know, together they're selling in a more united front. They're selling the whole package more, the ecosystem, going to reach clients in a useful way, help them understand, hey, do you need 24 kilowatt chargers? Do you need 600 kilowatt chargers? Do you need 300 kilowatt chargers? You know, they'll work with the customer, which I think will make customers much happier. And then because of the partnership, it should help with reliability. You know, there should be more of a kind of brand commitment to make sure that they're compatible and they're working in all conditions. So that's that.
Yeah, I think this is a really great product. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're sitting there trying to price out your fleet, you're trying to electrify your fleet, whether it's to meet your own corporate ESG goals or whether to meet the goals that are mandated upon you, forced upon you by your local government, the ability to meet those goals at a single location. And what I mean by a single location is you effectively go to one dealer and they help you solve all your problems from one location. It's really the Q merit model that we have in the United States with a few fewer contractors in the way. I think this is great stuff. Anything that's going to make it easier for large commercial fleets to transition to electric is something we're going to be supportive of.
Yep. And last one is this autonomous electric truck from Einride, a Swedish company. It's been working with GE appliances for a few years, and right now it's now transporting autonomously GE appliances from factory to warehouse. But there are caveats. It's doing so on 0.3 miles of roadway, private roadway. It's not doing this on public roads, although there was a trial previously together on public roads in Selmer, Tennessee. But yeah, the shifts that it's doing now is one truck up to 7 shifts a day, 5 days a week, 0.3 mile route. And there's a human like remotely controlling or monitoring it. So it's like, I don't know. I was struggling whether to write about this, whether to put it on the show. I think it's just worth noting where we are. Like, again, it's got an interesting look, but when it comes down to it, it's like it's not revolutionary.
Yeah, I was gonna say, where are we? Where is it that you think we are? What does default mean, Zachary?
Like, we've gone approximately no steps forward, but it looks like we might have.
Well,
like, it's not really doing anything special. I mean,
yeah, and that is ultimately what needs to be said, where we started off, and let's talk about this. We're getting to the end of 2023 here, so this is an important time. We look back and reflect on everything. I think the number one big issue, the big conversation of 2023, and obviously we're not talking about, you know, socio-political things. We're not talking about war in Ukraine, which has been going on for far too long. We're not talking about the conflict in Israel and Palestine, which is a completely different issue. There are real major things that are hurting people. We're not talking about that. We're talking about just in terms of tech. The big story in tech of 2023 was artificial intelligence. And the biggest change to the culture as a whole I think, has been that we are now having conversations about artificial intelligence on a daily basis with people like our parents and people like baby boomers who have been waiting for robots to take over the world since the Jetsons, right?
Yeah.
So this autonomous thing and autonomy in general and AI has been by far the big story of 2023. But we've also seen, whether it's the Tesla lawsuit about autopilot and full self-driving, whether it's the number of videos that, have shown the limitations of full self-driving, whether it's Cruise dragging a woman down the street and eventually suspending operations, we have seen time and time again that these systems, while very, very impressive, might not be ready for prime time. And I think this is kind of showing that. We're getting press releases saying, hey, we figured out a way to make this work on our private depot land. And, that's what we've got. What do you think? Where I think if you had put this press release out a year ago, people would have said, well, that's not impressive. But, these companies need to keep promoting their AI and put something positive out there about robotaxi and self-driving, because it doesn't seem to be going well. And let me ask you this. In all of the coverage that you've seen from Cybertruck, including ours, have you heard of Tesla or anybody else talking up its self-driving capabilities? This
That's
is
a
the
really good
first
point.
this is the first all new Tesla to come out in years. And you would think that it would be on the cutting edge of Tesla because it's the newest. It would have the newest drive unit. It would have the newest everything, right? But I don't hear anything about full self-driving. I don't hear about this thing at all being even remotely capable of serving as a robo-taxi.
Yeah, well, I love what you said about all that, and the way I'm sort of thinking about it is like it seems like there's extra doses of hype around AI every day, all the time,
Yep.
and there's also more air getting let out of the balloon. So you have the Cruise rollback and suspension, and you have this is like a sort of like okay, something but nothing. The full self-driving, like Elon has stopped hyping, oh, we'll have robotaxis next year or at the end of the year. And it's a really good note, which I hadn't thought about. And he would often talk about the robotaxi capability. And well, that's one of the reasons. That's why I had like 6 reservations for the Cybertruck. I was like, this would be a great robotaxi, very sturdy, big. It could be used for certain high dollar robotaxi uses if full self-driving was working at a robotaxi level by the time it came out. And not only is it not working at that level, Elon didn't even talk about it. Like he didn't even make that a point with it, which is pretty, yeah. I mean, I can't believe I didn't notice it or think of it, but it's good that you did because it's a pretty big deal that he didn't hype that up while talking about the Cybertruck.
It
I mean,
certainly feels like a big deal.
he's backed off of, like, he really struggled with himself on recent quarterly conference calls to not hype up, to not say stuff he had said like every year for the past several years about it, like for the past like 8 years, I would say, since 2015. So like again, air getting let out of the balloon, pulling the hype on it a little bit. He's still bullish on it, seems. A lot of people are. I am not, but yeah, like you said, you would have thought maybe it would have some more full self-driving hardware cameras. I mean, it has like that front camera they highlighted, but that seems to be because you can't, I don't know, but it's not, yeah, there's no like real significant step up in the capability, and there was no talk of it. So yeah, I think while this has become a more common topic of conversation and it's getting hyped by more and more companies, and a lot of companies hype their AI, whereas previously they would hype some other buzzword. It's the same software. It's just they're saying AI now. I don't know. I'm curious, but I think you nailed it. Yeah, so that's it.
Well, I think we've done the Cybertruck to death. I think even if we drive one, when I get a chance to drive one, I don't know that I'm going to have anything useful to add to the conversation. I think the Cybertruck thing has kind of jumped the shark. I'll probably still get one just because they're dumb and I love dumb stuff. But you know, it is what it is. I think.
But you're not getting the full self-driving package.
Oh God, no! I don't even think it works. The few times that I've been in it, and this was in Southern California. This was like when I went to Long Beach and in Austin. So I've allowed myself to be at the whim of full self-driving, and both times it was utterly terrifying. And I have let my XC90 on the highway pretty much, which it does a lot of the same things autopilot does, but Volvo doesn't call it autopilot. Volvo calls it, you know, like driver assist. It does lane keeping, it does speed checks, it'll stop and slow down, it does, you know, change lanes, it does all the things. I feel like the lane changes, the speeding, the bravery of the full self-driving intelligence model in terms of going for gaps that I would not go for as a human driver. I think it's pretty aggressive, and it's not for me, man. I'm not bullish on full self-driving at all.
Yeah, we can do a show where I'm driving around with full self-driving on, maybe. But or
Oh,
I'll
that'd be fun. And then
do my
once
own
you
video.
get killed, I can do this show with Steve.
Yeah. Yeah, we can. I would like. I've thought a lot about doing them live, because there's a lot of videos out there and they're all edited. And
Yeah,
I think live stuff would be like, well, I would, there might be an appeal, like, what's going to happen today? Let's see. But the problem is I'm not willing to use it with the vehicles around, so I would have to go on empty roads, because I mean, every time I test it with vehicles around, I mean, there's just a lot of I've had like dozens of instances where I'm like, this is insane. So maybe next version 12 or whatever will be better. We'll see. That's the show. That's our show, and we're sticking to it. Which is from SNL. It's Colin Quinn on Saturday Night Live weekend update 15 years ago. That's where it was a popular tagline.
For both of you who remember that.
Yes, we
Thanks
figured
for
it
listening.
out. Cheers. Bye.